Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me in this video where we look at a member of my classic computer collection. And today's model you wouldn't class as a classic. It is, however, an unusual machine. In the UK it was known as the ICL 1 per desk, and in New Zealand and Australia it was called the Computerphone. Here it is. In 1981, someone gazed into the future and had a good idea. This was it. Phones were part and parcel of the office environment, right? You needed them to communicate. However, it was becoming obvious that computers were also likely to become a standard fixture on the office desk. Workers were already starting to use them for word processing, spreadsheet and database work. Increasingly though, you would also need the computer to check online resources or to send and receive something electronically. In other words, the desktop computer had the potential to be a communication machine, like the phone. So why not integrate the two devices? You could have one machine which could handle all your data processing and analysis and your communications all together in one snazzy package. You could even get it to answer the phone for you and take messages, so you could ditch that old tape-based answering machine. How cool was that? International Computers Limited, ICL, obviously thought it was very cool, hence the development from 1981 to 1984 of the ambitiously titled 1 per desk model. With its ROM-based software, menu-driven operating system, and built-in modem and phone, this machine combined all the needs mentioned above. The computer was released by ICL, but it was developed in partnership with Sinclair Research. It is, in fact, essentially a Sinclair QL, heavily disguised. In Australia and New Zealand, the computer was called, more sensibly in my book, the Computerphone. It was released via both countries' single government-owned communications company, Telecom, in 1985. Here it graces the cover of the October 1985 edition of New Zealand Bits and Bytes. In New Zealand, you didn't buy the machine, you leased it on a monthly basis. So here is my Computerphone, and a very handsome machine it is. Both the computer and the manuals were donated. I even had someone donate a new keyboard membrane to fix a non-functioning number 1 key. So let's have a quick look at the various parts. So here's the main unit. I just love the design and the colours. A kind of mushroom beige with red, green and charcoal keys. It really screams 1980s, and it looks so incredibly retro. The raised bezel in front here holds 2 microdrives, a clear indication of the relationship of the Computerphone to the Sinclair QL. Apparently ICL worked hard to make these drives more reliable than the microdrives of the QL, but in doing so they also made the computer incompatible with the QL cartridges. So the only thing that can read a Computerphone cartridge is another Computerphone. Around the back we can see the modular design of the unit. On the left is a plug-in ROM pack. This ROM pack has 4 slots which can accept what ICL calls program capsules. In fact, these capsules were how most software was made available to the computer, with the tape cartridges being used largely to store data associated with the capsule delivered programs. My computer only has one capsule, a messaging one. You can see it plugged in there. It was common though to also have a Scion Office capsule called Office Exchange, and that provided Office software similar to that of the QL. Also a BASIC similar to the QL Super Basic was provided not on a capsule in this case, but on a cartridge. Moving along the back towards the right, we see a connector for the serial printer, a socket for the screen, then the module containing all the circuitry for the telephone system, including a modem. The colour screen is very clear and bright, with the colours and even their hues matching the decor of the console. One interesting thing about the model is that power is supplied to the console via the screen. It is only the screen that is plugged into the wall. The screen itself has an on-off switch, but this only turns off the tube. It doesn't cut power to the console. That remains fully active, and the only way you can cut power to the console is to unplug the screen from the wall socket. Now, it was designed this way because it was assumed the unit would need to be on 24 24/7 to handle incoming calls even after office hours. Given that it's designed to be always on, cooling must be very efficient as there's no fan. Here you can see the now defunct logo of our then government-owned Telecom adorning the screen. Here's what it looks like inside. Now this is a borrowed photo I found on the web. It's a relatively small circuit board, as you can see. Okay, on to the video now, and I'll show you a few things with regards to the case. Here's the phone. As you can see, it's very much a 1980s design. I've had this plugged into the phone socket, and I've even made some calls on it, and it works just fine. So 2 telephone cables come out of the computer. One's for the phone and the other is a dedicated data line from the modem. Cords are very long, several meters in fact. Here are the standard connectors on either end. So here's a look at the cartridge bezel and the cartridge itself. The same size and type as those used with the Sinclair QL. They just contain a thin roll of continuous tape. But just pull this back a bit. There you can see the ROM pack with one of its capsules plugged in. Note the potential for 3 others to be added. I'd just love to have the Cyan Express one. This is something I'm watching out for. Right, well let's put our console back into position and put our machine to work. The operating system is all menu driven. Here's the top menu showing a range of functions. So let's go through some of these, and we'll start with the telephone directory. Now this is just what it says. It's a place to store those important names and numbers. Just have a look at the data entry screen. You see there the input boxes are pretty clear. It's very much form-like. I'll just type some data in here. Much of the data manipulation, once you got down to the sub-menus, was controlled by a function key and a number. So pressing the function key and then 8, say, will get us out of this editing screen. Incidentally, that noise you can hear is not a fan. There's a winter storm raging outside at the moment, so you're hearing some pretty heavy rain. So we'll go back to the top menu and we'll look at the second item. This takes us to telephone control. Pressing 1, we can see the line status there. Using this telephone control submenu, we can also set our answer phone message. So let's say we're going on holiday or on vacation if you live in North America. So here you can see a few of the allowable words. Not all of them. This is just one screen. You can see more if you scroll down. So let's type out our message. There we go, now we can listen to it.
I am away on holiday. I will be back on Monday.
I think I can detect a distinctly British accent there. Okay, so we'll leave that and go back up to the top, this time to number 3, which is messaging control. Now this is a form of email. You can write messages and send them backwards and forwards, but unfortunately only to other computer phones. So let's create a message. So we'll get to our form. Here it is. It's the same style and colours, in keeping with other data entry forms for other tasks you might want to do. So let's type a short message here. Keyboard's quite good to type on. It uses a membrane though, so while it's full stroke, it does feel a little soft and a little mushy. So here's our message, ready to go. We don't need it now, so we'll delete it. It checks just to make sure we really want to do this. Just playing around with the machine, I've found the menu-based systems very intuitive. The manual is largely redundant, which is great. So back to the top menu again. The next option is option 4, which is the cartridge menu. And this lets you see what's on a cartridge. There's a default cartridge which is read first, and then if can't find anything on that, it asks you to select the other cartridge, and it tries that one. So the next option on the main menu is called Computer Access. This is option 5. And this is used for dialing up online services. So here's the sub-menu. You can actually use a short code or alias to speed things up if you had one developed. And this alias is created in a computer directory where an alias can be typed in and then matched up with a number to call for the service and all the parameters needed to connect. So in using that alias you could have a very quick connection. Then we also have a manual connection, and here it simply asks for the terminal type that's to be used, and it should enable you to connect manually. There's also a basic calculator. It's certainly not an unobtrusive pop-up one as we would get nowadays. So I'll just add a few numbers together here so you can see how it works. Fairly clunky looking. Pressing item 7 there tries to load BASIC or for microdrive cartridge. It won't work, of course, because I don't have the cartridge. You can see it gives a fail message there. The last item is for housekeeping. So if we have a look at that, it's number 8. You can see there's a list of all the things you can do. There's quite a few of them. One of the options is a number of microdrive utilities, which facilitates a number of different functions. You can see a list of them here. Now just before I leave the machine, what I want to do is to show you this. You can see that the telephone and the computer are pretty well integrated, with the messages appearing on the screen depending on the state of the receiver, as you can see here. So, onto the manuals, and I've got 3. These are all ring bound and on glossy paper. This first one covers all of the built-in menu items in exquisite detail. How to use the machine, how to set it up, how to remove the various modular bits and pieces. Quite a nice manual, pretty well designed. There's a smaller one here on, it's titled Advanced Operations. It's interesting because it's written in Courier font, and it's not quite as fancy as the other one. It certainly looks more of a technical nature, and that does go into some of the advanced functions of the machine. It talks about data standards, for example, baud rate parity, etc. Then we've got the third manual, which is on the messaging capsule itself. So that talks about the messaging function of the machine. That was at option 3 in the main menu. Now I just thought I'd zoom in on this image because I found it quite amusing. You can see there the plant on the desk. That's a fruit salad plant, and that is so typically late 1970s, early 80s. I just thought that was pretty amusing to see that there. So, what was the fate of this friendly and easy to use computer phone, and why isn't it a classic computer? Well, the ideas were sound enough, but the development phase, hobbled as it was by the tie-in to the poorly managed Sinclair QL project, was far too long. It lasted from conception in 1981 to market in 1984 and in New Zealand in 1985. So that's 3 to 4 years, which was an eon in computing those days. Things moved on. Firstly, the platform. By 1985, the business market had decided. It was the IBM PC XT or compatibles all the way. The 5 1/4 inch floppy disk ruled, and if you couldn't transfer data from machine to machine by giving a coworker a disk, or vice versa, then your computer and the work you did on it was in the exclusion zone, no matter how easy it was to use. The Computerphone, based on the Sinclair QL, used microdrives with their own proprietary format. While they might have been useful for keeping the price low when drive prices were sky high in 1981, they were eccentric devices by 1985. Secondly, there was the software. The Computerphone used modified versions of Scion software designed for the QL. Not only were the work files produced by these programs incompatible with common MS-DOS ones, but they also worked quite differently. Office workers were boning up on Lotus 123, which gave them a transferable skill within companies, so why train them to use software which wasn't going to be used anywhere else? Lastly, computer communications had advanced. Throw a modem in your PC and you could access all of those online services easily. In 1985 then, in New Zealand, and I suspect in Britain and Canada too, where this unit was also sold, it made far more sense to buy a cheap PC clone with a modem and a telephone with an answering machine than consider the Computerphone, especially at the 190 to 250 New Zealand dollars rental Telecom charged you for the machine per month. Like a shooting star then, the Computerphone blazed forth for a moment, only to fade to the invisible almost immediately. Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at the Telecom Computerphone, or as it's known in the UK, the ICL one per desk. So that's it for today. In the meantime, keep well, and we'll see you in the next video.